My name is Renee Ramirez. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I have successfully been able to reverse that, and my doctors have said that I am no longer living with diabetes. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Well, I was diagnosed with drug-induced type 2 diabetes a little over a year and a half ago. I do have insulin-resistant PCOS, and so I was a little bit familiar with the fact that I might one day develop diabetes, but none of my doctors really talked to me a lot about that. But I developed bilateral Bell's palsy, which is facial paralysis of both sides of my face, and I was given a steroid for almost a year. Now, I had seven different doctors monitoring my blood work every 3 months, and I was not being told anything. I was a little worried because I was having mass weight gain. They were saying, it's fine, don't worry about it. And I woke up one day in February of last year, and I couldn't see. Everything was blurry. I have glasses, and I put them on, and I couldn't see. I put my contacts on, I couldn't see. And I waited like a couple of days. I called my doctor, and they were my doctor, and he was like, no, I think you're okay. Like, maybe it's just your medication. Let's set up an appointment for you to come in. Let's just check and make sure it's not the Bell's palsy. So I was seeing a neuro-ophthalmologist. He thought maybe it was just my prescription. I was really highly stressed. I was in the middle of getting my master's degree. I was working a lot. And so he was like, maybe this is just your prescription's changed, but we'll wait a couple of days. We'll get you in. I went in to see. I had a whole team of neuro-ophthalmologists come in and say, we don't know what's wrong with you. We don't know why you can't see. And we started talking, and I said, well, I was just diagnosed with the flu like 3 days ago, and I've been drinking a lot of orange juice. And one of the doctors said, that's it, you're diabetic. And I was like, wait, no, I'm not. I am not diabetic. Like, my doctors have been monitoring me. I'm good. And he said, I guarantee you go buy a monitor, you're going to be in the high 500s to 600s. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I don't think so. But okay. He said, call your doctor now. And so I called and said, hey, this is what my ophthalmologist said. They said, okay, we'll schedule you later on in the week to come in, run through some tests, maybe fasting. So my dad was driving me. He's the one who took me to the doctor. So we stop at Walmart. We get a glucose monitor. I stab my finger in the car, and it pops up like 585. And I was like, I don't think that's good. And so I start Googling, and that's terrifying, right, when you start looking that up. But I call the doctor back. I say, hey, this is what it came up with. They were like, okay, come in tomorrow. I go in. She talks to me for a little bit, and I go do blood work. And then I wait almost a week to hear back. And I'm just, everybody's trying to tell me, maybe it's just the medication. Maybe it's just this. Maybe it's just that. Like, it can't possibly be diabetes. Like, nobody has told you that, like, you were getting close to that. So I get a call back, and it's from the doctor, and she says, or from the doctor's office, and the nurse says, the doctor's going to put you on metformin, and then she'll check back with you in 3 weeks. And that was it. And I said, no. I'm going to schedule an appointment to see the doctor. We need to talk about this. I don't understand anything. And it was a back and forth. Nobody wanted to schedule me to go in to see the doctor. They just wanted me to take metformin. And I didn't want to. I had been on metformin for my PCOS years before. I got off of it after a month. It was not what I wanted. And so I went in, and she starts telling me, like, you should have been in a diabetic coma. Like, this was so bad. Your numbers were so high. We need to drop it down. So we're going to put you on Trulicity, and we're going to put you on Jardiance. And we've got to bring the numbers down quick. So I said, okay. I started to understand why the medication. But a friend of mine a few years before had told me about Mastering Diabetes, the book. And so I got home, I downloaded it on Audible, and I listened to it, and the next day I started. I had done some research about just like the toxins of animal products, but I was still eating a lot of processed food. So I always say I was doing about 75 to 80% of like the vegetables and stuff. But immediately I thought I couldn't have fruit. I thought that like I couldn't have any kind of carbs at all. I was like, and I love carbs. So I was like, what? And so when I listened to the book, I remember listening to it twice in the same day because I couldn't believe what I was actually hearing was that I could have unlimited amounts of fruits and vegetables and beans And this was somehow going to help me when literally the doctor's office I left, she said, you need to be on a low carb diet. We can talk about keto. Like, but this is what I need you to do. And on my way home, I had actually called my other doctor who is monitoring my Bell's palsy and told them, and he said, you can only have like a small, like tangerine size piece of fruit. Like, you can't have any more than that. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do that. And then I listened to this and I was like, what? This can't be real. And I started watching YouTube videos of Cyrus and Robbie presenting things. And it just started to click. It started to make sense what they were saying. And I thought, well, heck, let's try it. In the beginning, when I first started this process in the first couple of weeks, so at the time I was living with my parents, I was in grad school and I was living with my parents, and my dad had just had a kidney transplant, and we were going through a lot of transitions of being at home. And so I present this to them, right? And so they were like, we've never heard of anything like this, but okay, if this is what you want to do, we're going to support you in this. And so I cleared out everything that I feel bad for them, because I basically made them go on the same diet for like the first 2 weeks. It was get everything out of the house because I don't want to be tempted. My fiance, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I dived 100% in. So every single meal, I was like, I'm not doing any animal products at all. I'm not doing anything processed. I have this list of green light foods. I'm only eating what these green light foods are. I was checking my glucose after every meal, 2 hours after every meal, first in the morning, right before I went to bed. And then, I was pricking my finger so often. And I was so surprised when I saw the numbers start to go from the high 500s to like the 300s. Now, I'd been given the medication, but I hadn't taken the medication yet. And so I was like, okay, so they were out of it actually at my pharmacy. So I had to wait about a week. And so within that first week, I saw these dramatic changes. And I didn't really eat bad before. Like I said, I was already eating vegan. So I was a little confused, but really excited. And so then it just inspired me to keep doing it. And I would have moments where I would have like a potato and chickpeas, or a potato and quinoa. And then it would like boost my numbers up. And I'd be like, oh, okay. But it didn't scare me to stop. It was like, okay, my body's got to figure out what's going on. And so then after about the first 2 to 3 weeks, I got on the medication, and then it was kind of just like a less drastic lowering, but things were starting to lower. But I felt like things were starting to lower in a different way than if I'd just been on the medication. I feel like if I'd just been on the medication, there would have been gaps in the lowering, because I don't think that the medication alone could make it drop down the way that it was. By the end of the month, I was into the 100s, coming from high 5 to 600s. And I personally, I don't know, but for me, I didn't feel like that would have happened if I was only doing medication. And that's just from talking to people that I knew that were diabetic, who were only on medication, and they were on the same medications, and they were still in the 3 to 400s. The process for me for getting off medication, I knew from the beginning I did not want to be on medication, that I was not going to do that. I had already experienced what being on medications could do to my body, and I did not want to do that. So I started walking every day. I made that my thing that I did. I walked 30 minutes every day, and that went from a mile to walking 6 miles a day of just like enjoying being outdoors. And I started doing my own research on what is a normal number for somebody who's diabetic. And all of the numbers were like, oh, if you're in the 6s, if your A1C is like a 6.1, like that's normal for a diabetic. And I was like, not for me. That's not good enough. So at 3 months, I went and got my A1C checked, and it was a 6.1. And my doctors, all of them, were like, oh, that's incredible. You went from a 12.9, which is what my original one was, to a 6.1 in 3 months. And they were like, oh, the medications are working. And I was like, I don't want to say the medications are working. This is how I'm eating. And I remember having one doctor, the one who told me the tangerine-sized fruit, he said, I told him everything I was doing, like, this is Mastering Diabetes. I took him a copy of the book. I was like, this has been life-changing for me. The weight was falling off. So I was at, my highest was between 267 and 269, and weight was just falling off. And he was like, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then at the end of the visit, he's like, but don't eat more than like a small apple or orange a day. And I'd literally got through telling him that I was like living on mangoes and apples and grapes and cherries. And that's when I realized like it didn't matter what I said. Like I could keep doing what I was going to do and he could just keep believing what he was going to believe. I knew what was working. So once it was at 6.1, I started asking, at what point can I get off medication? And all of them were like, well, you know, the medication's what's working. And I said, no, if I can manage to maintain a normal, for somebody outside of diabetes, to maintain a normal A1C and blood glucose level, can I get off the medication? And is there a reason? Can you give me a scientific reason why I cannot get off the medications? And none of them could. And so they said, okay, we'll come back in 3 months and let's see where it is. And so I went back in 3 months. It was down to a 5. I was like, great, let's start taking me off some medications. So they tapered me off. Well, they told me to taper off of the Trulicity. I just stopped taking it. And the Jardiance, they went ahead and took me completely off of that. They said, we're going to keep that prescription valid in case you start to see the numbers climb back up. Then you can always run to the store and pick that up. Well, I have yet to need to do that. I started in February. So in January, I was unaware that those were my numbers. So that's the thing. In January, I was unaware. So in December, I'm sorry, this started in December. I was unaware. Those were my numbers. In January is when I was diagnosed, at the end of January. So I would say like the very beginning of February is when I read the book. So I went to the doctor. Everything happened with my vision at the end of January. And then the beginning of February is when I got my results back. And so there was probably a week or two in between the incident to when I was actually diagnosed and able to get the information. And for me, because doctors, what I found in my experience with all of my medical things that have happened, from PCOS to the bilateral Bell's palsy to the diabetes, nobody really wants to sit down and have a conversation about this is what's going on with your body. This is how you can fix it. It's like, this is the diagnosis. Here's the medication. We'll see you in a few months. And I lived that way for 30-something years with PCOS, and I did not want to do that again. I had entrusted my doctors with the bilateral Bell's palsy, and that is what literally pushed me into a diabetic state. And therefore, my trust in let's just give you some medication wasn't working for me. And so because I fought back and said, I need to have a conversation, it was a little bit more of a gap between when the incident occurred and when I was able to get into the doctor's office. But again, the day after I left, or the day I left the doctor's office in February is when I downloaded the book, listened to it, and started the very next day. I went in August of last year. And that's when they took me off of all medication. So that's why I say I can officially say that I am diabetic free, because they said, okay, but you've got to be 1 year of maintaining this A1C without being on any medications. And it has officially been 1 full year of being off of all medications and maintaining a 5 A1C. For me personally, I wanted to try to do this on my own with the support of family and friends. I know that investing in coaching is a great thing. But for me, I was in grad school. I was living at home. I was working a pretty decent job, but trying to pay off student loans while I was going to grad school. And I was having to deal with Bell's palsy, which had been very expensive, traveling to other states to see doctors. So making that expensive coaching, I felt like, first, let me see if I can do this. If this is something I can do. And then if I need that help, I will invest in that. But if I can do this on my own, then I'm going to. And so I didn't want to be on medications. I looked up on the way home from the doctor's office, I looked up all of the side effects of the medications that they were putting me on. And I realized that at the time I was 40. was 40 years old, or about to be 40. Did I want to spend the next 40 years with an additional load of medications and health problems because I had to be on medication for diabetes? Or did I want to, on my own, trust what these guys were saying had worked, what my friend showed me had worked, what was biblical? And since I'm a believer, was a missionary for a long time, this way of eating is literally the way that the Bible tells us we are supposed to eat. So was I going to trust that and potentially not have to spend the next 40 years going to doctor's offices and being on medication and having heart problems and gallbladder problems and liver problems and kidney disorders? Which one was going to be better for me? And obviously for me, it was, let's read the book. Let's dive into this. Is it going to be hard? Probably so. Am I going to have times where I'm going to slip and fall? Absolutely. My mom made a tuna salad one day and I was like, I'm getting a bite of that tuna salad. And then I didn't like it. And that was like the greatest thing, I think, for me, was the couple of times that I was like, well, let me try this. No, I didn't even like the way anything tasted anymore. I was like, I don't like that processed stuff. I don't like that. I didn't like the way fish tasted. I didn't like the process of some of the condiments and things. And that made me just realize my body wasn't intended to like those things to begin with. My body was intended to like the natural things that come from the earth. And it does. And so I focused a lot of that. For accountability, I posted online. I said, hey, this is what's going on with me. I was diagnosed with this. This is my weight. This is my A1C. I'm at a 12.9. I'm at between 267 and 269 pounds. And I'm determined to get off of medication and to get off of this. So all of my friends and family that now know way more about my business than I wanted you to ever know, I want you guys to hold me accountable. And I would post every week what my A1 or what my fasting glucose had been for the week, like the average was, or I would post pictures of my meals. I would share those things on social media, and so people could see this is what I'm doing and it's working. And as they started to see the weight come off, and as they started to see that I was happier, I had horrible acne, and it just cleared up on its own. I wasn't using anything special. Then the questions started to come, and then that made me feel even more accountable, because now people were watching my journey. And so I couldn't just be like, oh, well, I'm tired of doing this. No, if this is truly what I believe in, then this is something that it's not a diet. I don't believe it's a diet. I don't believe it's a fad or a trend. It is a genuine lifestyle change. And so I don't force it on anyone else, but I allow them to see how it's been working in my life. And then I used my FitnessPal. I used the chronometer, and I logged everything. And people who were going kind of through a similar journey, I would invite them to, let's be friends on these apps, and let's, hold each other accountable. And do you drink your water today? And I would do check-ins, and I would do little Facebook groups where I would say hey, I'm going to do this challenge of we're going to walk, 30 minutes a day for 6 weeks. Who wants to join me in this? And that was keeping me accountable in my exercise, my water intake, but it was also being able to do something fun with my friends and my family on social media. For me, in January of 2022, I had an A1C of a 12.95 with a fasting blood glucose of 325, and I weighed 267 pounds. 6 months later, I weighed 185 pounds. My A1C went to a 5, and my fasting blood glucose was at an 80. I am living my best life. I still have some weight that I want to lose, but I am literally living my best life. My mom used to tell me your 40s are your best years, and I have captured that. I definitely have captured that. I would never have gone for the promotion I went for. I would never have gone for the job that I went for. I would never have had the desire or energy, even just energy, to move and to do the things that I've done in my life had this not happened, had I not had this huge lifestyle change. And I didn't realize that the processed foods I was eating, even though they were vegan, the processed foods I was eating and the diet drinks that I was consuming, I didn't realize the impact they were having internally in my body, in my mind, in my overall just way of seeing things and doing things, and completely mind shift, completely everything has shifted to where I have a clear mind, I'm able to focus, I'm able to get my work done, plenty of time, I'm able to travel, I'm able to do all of the things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not had this incredible lifestyle change. And it's all because of mastering diabetes. For anybody who is just maybe beginning this journey, being recently diagnosed or changing from what they've been doing to wanting to try this, one would say read the book. Okay, I did all of this by reading the book. Read the book with an open mind, but don't let it be overwhelming. One of the things that I loved about Mastering Diabetes is the book lays out a plan on how to gradually go about doing this. For me, I dove in 100%. That's just my personality. That's who I am. I'm an all or nothing kind of girl. And so that's what I did. But I would say for anybody else, gradually do it. Do it the way the book tells you. Do it the way that it's designed. The research is there. The studies are there. The proof is there. Just don't overwhelm yourself in trying to feel like I have to do it all at one time. I have to be perfect. I can't fall off the wagon. No, do it at a gradual pace that's right for you. Reach out for help and talk to people. Make it a journey that you're walking along with other people. And if people in your family aren't supportive, or people in your immediate circle aren't supportive, go into the online groups. Go onto Facebook. Go onto Instagram. Search the hashtags. I use hashtags for everything. I've had people that now follow me simply because they saw a post that I had, and I've been able to encourage them. And so I say that use social media for the benefit of things, for benefiting the accountability and the encouragement in what you're doing. Sometimes it's not so great when you don't have people there to support you right then and there, but there are people who want to support you. And if you can't, do the coaching and do all of that because it is so overwhelming, start small. Start with the way the book tells you to do it. It lines it out for you. Gradually change things. Reach out and ask questions. You're not going to help you're not going to help yourself or anybody else by not asking questions or by allowing yourself to be overwhelmed. So ask the questions. There are no stupid questions. There are no, we don't know until we do it. We don't know until we try it. And so don't be afraid to just try, ask questions, and do it the way the book's lined it up to be. So I would definitely encourage everybody on their own to do research. I am grateful for the doctors that we have in our lives, but they are not specially trained for each one of our lives. None of my doctors thought that putting me on a medication for the amount of period of time that they did would cause me to develop another disorder that I would potentially have to live with for the rest of my life. They were all completely thrown by that fact. I've got Bell's palsy, bilateral Bell's palsy. It is very, very, very hard to find a doctor who knows anything specific about it. So sometimes our doctors, as great as they are only taught so much in school. Most of them haven't been in school for years and years and years. They do not fully understand what diabetes is and how to cure it versus how to treat it. And so I say, do your research. Do your research. Find out what you're actually putting in your body and try it. Try it for 6 weeks. Try it. Stay on your medication. Don't get off your medication, but try it for 6 weeks. How do you feel at the end of 6 weeks? Do you have more energy? Are you seeing weight come off? Are your numbers dropping a little bit more than they normally had been? Are you sleeping better? Is your mind clearer? Try that for 6 weeks. See how you feel. My doctors, they didn't necessarily agree with it. Now they can't say what happened. Oh, did you do what we told you? No, I did the opposite of what you told me to do. And this worked. And as I said before, I feel like, with my doctors, they said, go low carb, no carb, this whole, don't eat carbs. If I had gone that route and then I decided one day I was going to have an orange and an apple, my glucose would have spiked in an instant. Doing what I've done, like I said, there have been times where my mom made a tuna salad and I was like, I'm going to have a bite of that, or I'm going to try to eat that. And I didn't like it, but my numbers didn't spike. My numbers didn't go crazy. My body didn't go crazy. because my body has learned how to process the insulin. My body has learned what it needs to do. There's not all this fat in there that's preventing it from going where it needs to go anymore. And so if you do have an instance where you eat something that you shouldn't have, you're not going to put your body in this crazy toxic spiral. Versus the opposite, if you go low carb and you eat fruits, then your body's going to spiral because it doesn't know what to do. And so again, I've learned that by research and by doing all that on my own. So for those who are skeptical, for those who their doctors are just completely against it, I say do your research, read the book, and try it for 6 weeks. 6 weeks to me, I have seen so many results in 6 weeks. My mom has rheumatoid arthritis. She had a fatty liver. She did it for 6 weeks. She no longer has a fatty liver. My sister, she's a colon cancer survivor. She did it for 6 weeks. She lost a ton of weight. But her entire panel of numbers just came back looking great. My dad, who's a kidney transplant recipient, went and talked to his doctor shortly after I'd started doing this, and he said, hey, this is how my daughter's eating. She's got me eating this way. And the kidney doctor said, well, that explains it, Mr. Ramirez. Your kidney is responding like the kidney belonged there. Your kidney has no issues at all. And that's a very rare thing to see. Even in somebody who's gotten a kidney from a family member like he did, there's still usually some issues there. There's usually some differences. He said, but your numbers look great. Everything about this, your kidney's being received great. And that explains it because of how you're eating. So it's there. It's there. You just have to do the research. You have to be willing to push the doctors and test them a little bit. Ask them to show you their research. For me, a couple of things that I have felt like as I share my story or I share with other people, a couple of things. One is just you're going to have people in your life that are naysayers. You're going to have people in your life that think that you're just, crazy or you're just, following some kind of toxic whatever. But I would just say, like, don't put so much weight into what they're saying. Even if it's your husband, your wife, your kids, don't put too much weight and value into what they're saying about your life, because it's your life journey. It's not their life journey. You're not asking them to change their life journey. You're choosing to change your own. So focus on the value being your own health,